Max One-on-One.
Jill said, Jack, please, bring me to my knees. Fill me full of bills, roll me down the hill. Don't wanna live no more, just wanna hit the floor. Don't wanna stand and shout, just wanna tune it out. Oh, get tough, get ready. Oh, get high, rock steady. Oh, get tough, get ready. Oh, get high, rock steady.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Max One-on-One after a while. Today I'm with Johnny Jetson. Oh my god, what a privilege.
Hey, the privilege is all mine. Max 101, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I was listening to your new album. It's Make Your Move with the lady with the gun, right? The blonde with the gun. I love it. And there's a song that says, I believe in rock and roll. And I believe that you believe in rock and roll, man. Your rock and roll is in your heart and soul, man.
I'm a devout believer in rock and roll. It is true. It's been a lifetime commitment. And, rock and roll, it's been there. It's been there for me. And it's proved itself time and time again to be my best friend.
Wow.
Hey, some people think it's a cliche and it's a part-time gig.
Yeah.
Or it's something you do on the weekends, and for me, it's just a lifestyle.
I wanna sing along, 'cause I believe in a sound that's magical. Hear it all around.
From the clothes, to the cars, to the friends and the things I like to surround myself with, and the music I make. And just, giving back. My music is the offering to my God, rock and roll.
Wow.
Just don't eat me. Take him.
I started to pay attention to your career about a year ago, and I follow you on Facebook, Instagram, and it's unbelievable. You are all day, you think, and in terms of music and rock and roll.
Well, there's a lot to get distracted by in the world, and I try not to get distracted by it,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like everybody, I see what's going on. I have an opinion on everything, but when it comes to the social networking, I'm just trying to keep it fun, exciting, happy. The past year has been me making my move too. So
Yeah.
just trying to keep it cool, man. Trying to keep it cool.
Johnny, you're originally from New York. And I hear a lot in your music. I was at the beginning. I was kind of trying to identify. Okay, this is more New York style music, rock and roll, or Los Angeles. Like East Coast versus. Tell me a little bit about it, because you live in New York, and then have you moved to Los Angeles? Because I don't know. There's a little bit of everything in that.
Well, yeah, we're all kind of a product of our environments. Like you can take the boy out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the boy. Yeah. I grew up in Brooklyn, in the 70s, and was going into Manhattan in the 80s. And, a big Kiss fan, a big New York Dolls fan, a big Ramones. I loved all the New York glam rock and punk rock. And, so yeah, that's kind of the core of it,
Awesome. I love it.
As a young teenager, I got into the metal, the transition from, like Kiss and Aerosmith into Wasp and Rat and, the first Crew record.
Yeah, I love that record.
And then by the time that was, kind of moved back, I was in the Gothic scene in New York, and was into bands like Sisters of Mercy and Bolt was a big one, discovered Guns N' Roses early on and was telling everyone for about, almost a year, you got to check out this band, you got to check out. But then when they exploded and became this big band, then I was on to the next thing. I like to be into a band in the early days of it,
Why do you think is that? Why do you think it's that? I think because, bands, the very first album, Kiss first album, Motley Crue first album, Skid Row, you name it. I don't know if there's something that the hunger of uh, deliver your first album, and all these obstacles that you have to go through. Do you think, do you agree with that, or why do you think that the first albums are kind of the best of many bands, right, in rock and roll?
I would agree with what you said. I mean, the bands are young and they're hungry, and they've been cutting their teeth in the clubs and living the lifestyle, and they're young and they're hung and they're full of cum, and they want to just float all over the load all over the world. And once they blow their load all over the world, they got nothing left. So try to repeat that same move, and by then you're like, yeah, we've been fucking missionary style for 2 to 3 already, man. It's gonna change positions.
I love it.
If the sex is good, then then the positions are right, then you can hang with it for a while. I mean, I love the Ramones from the first record to the last, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, they never changed their sound or their style or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, but I mean, a 70 Corvette is a 70 Corvette. It doesn't have to be an 86 Corvette. It doesn't have to be something else. The Ramones were the Ramones, and they were great, and I don't think it would have ever worked for them to try to do a concept record or get progressive or add a saxophone, why change it up? They were the Ramones, and they had a style and sound that was all their own, and they stuck to it.
Absolutely,
I mean, Kiss they changed their style and costumes and sounds on the record, but it was always Kiss, and the great bands can do that, Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin, and experiment with different sounds and styles, and it's cool, but not everyone's like that. I mean, I'm not really like that. I came up in the Space Age Playboys, and then got the band Tattooed Millionaires going, and 5, 6, 7 records later, I'm putting out Make Your Move, and a lot of people are like, wow, like it could have been the Space Age Playboys record. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's the style I write. That's I like to make.
It's so amazing, man. It's
songs
so
I like to play. I mean, I cut out a lot of the fat. I just try to get to the point right now. Attention spans aren't what they used to be. You used to be able to sit back and put on a record, and like Dark Side of the Moon. Who makes Dark Side of the Moon? Who's got the patience for it? Hey, listen to my new song. Yeah, don't mind the 10-minute synth intro. It gets to the song after that. I'd be like, what? Like, I mean, I have a 30-second attention span for music. There's so much of it, and I want to feel it right away.
Yes. Yes, I agree, man. Question for you, and it's a question that has 2 parts on it. So first of all, you started to play guitar inspired on Ace Frehley, and then the name of Space Age has something to do with Ace Frehley?
Well, Space Age Playboys was a band I was in with Warrior Soul frontman Corey Clark, and that was name. The last Warrior Soul record before he did Space Age Playboys was called Space Age Playboys.
Okay.
And when he moved out to LA, we had a mutual friend that hooked us up, and that was a great band. Everyone should check out the Space Age Playboys record, New Rock Underground. We had a good time out in LA for a couple of years, and we got to tour in Europe, and open for some really big bands and play some good shows, and the record did real well. It was a lot like the Sex Pistols. I would just kind of describe this as an American Sex Pistols, and it had all that volatility, the 4 of us together, either exploded on stage or like exploded at each other. So
classical.
It was like
classic.
You could have the best night in the whole world and then just have it end in complete tragedy and pandemonium, chaos,
That's what rock and roll is about. Look at the Ramones. The Ramones that were like little kids, like brothers, fighting, and that's what it is, man. That is what it is about. And we have to enjoy the good moments. That's what we have to focus on.
Yeah, I'm a lot older too, and I'm not as into drugs and carrying on like I used to. But back in the day, the party. I mean, I drove around LA in a '67 Cougar, really loud hot rod car, and people would hear driving around at like Sunday morning at 6 a.m. looking for the party. But I'm still into cool old cars, man. I'm just like 6 a.m. I'm waking up making breakfast.
Regarding Ace Frehley, was Ace Frehley an inspiration, one of your first inspirations to start playing guitar?
Ace Frehley was absolutely a big inspiration, but I had already been playing guitar by then. I got into guitar early. My parents were hippies. There was always a guitar lying around, and you know, people would come over and smoke pot and listen to records and play guitar. And there were some older guys in the group that taught me my first chords. I mean, by the time I discovered Kiss, which is a great story, I'll tell you in a second, but by the time I discovered Kiss when I was about 7 years old in 1975, wow. I already had every Led Zeppelin record, every Jimi Hendrix record. Wow. They were bought for me and they were passed down to me, and they were lying around the house. And, you know, so I was already big into rock and roll. And of course, all the Beatles and the Stones. And I used to bring Rolling Stones records with me to school in first and second grade and listen to them during the break. And I had a second grade teacher, Mr. Barry. Mr. Barry was a great second grade teacher. And he would bring me into the teacher's lounge, which sounds kind of weird now, the teacher bringing me into the lounge, but he would bring me in the lounge on break time when the kids went on the playground, and he would listen to the Rolling Stones records I brought in. So it was, and everyone was real supportive of me being into music back then, you know, just as I am supportive of my kid being into cowboy, whatever he's into, you know. But then one day, after school, I had a babysitter because I would always get into trouble. My parents learned I needed a babysitter. You know, back in the 70s, kids could run wild. But I was only 7 years old. But my babysitter brought over a 45 record of Kiss, Rock and Roll All Night. And she brought over a magazine. And she said, Johnny, you got to check these guys out. I'm like, what's that? She goes, it's Kiss. And she put on the record and she opened the magazine and showed me a picture of them. And I was like, woo! It was like the second coming of Christ. I mean, it was like I was a big circus fan. My grandma used to take me to the Madison Square Garden each year for the Ringling Brothers Circus. And I was way into the show. I mean, they were the rock and roll circus. So seeing a picture of them was amazing. And then right away I was drawn to the Spaceman.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear a little bit of the Ace Frehley, you know. I mean, I grew up learning how to play Kiss songs, you know, so all those little licks, I don't really, like if you said, hey, play the solo from Shock Me, I maybe play a little part of it, you know. If I do the record for a while, I could probably figure it out, but there is an element to that style. And Ace Frehley was a big Jimi Hendrix fan growing up, and so was I as a little kid, so it's kind of weird, they're older. But at the same time, you know, at 7 years old, I was kind of coming from a little bit of the same background that the players of the time were.
Nice. Yeah, and based on your latest album, the Make Your Move album,
Are you hearing some Kiss influences in the Make Your Move record?
Yes.
In the time I was writing that record, now the record's a year old because it came out during the whole COVID thing.
Yes.
I was originally scheduled to go to the UK and play a tour and go to Japan to shoot some videos, and maybe Australia we were talking, and then all of that, you know, like everyone else, and it all got shut down. So now we're kind of starting to come back. Now I'm still touring on the Make Your Move album, but the new record is like ready to come out. I don't know what to do. You know, tour again another year on the Make Your Move because of what happened with it, or put out the new record and just tour on both of them, which I think is more what's going to be happening.
Okay.
But as far as my favorite Kiss record goes, I mean, that could change every day. But, you know, I was listening to a lot of the Paul Stanley solo record around the time I was writing the Make Your Move record. The solo records have some really strong songwriting on them. Ace is usually my favorite solo record, but Paul's is very close. As far as Kiss goes, you know, sometimes I want to hear the early stuff, you know, the first record, Dressed to Kill, Hotter Than Hell. And then other times I look at Kiss like there's two eras. I mean, there's many more that came, but for me growing up, there was that initial 1975 era, the first three records and the live record. And then there was the Destroyer, Love Gun, or Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun era. Wouldn't You Like to Know Me feel with the Cheap Trick, the three big Cheap Trick, another great influential, band of that era growing up. Been in so many different bands and all, but when I was just listening to Cheap Trick today,
wow,
one of those shown things,
amazing, man.
We go back to the Kiss and the Cheap Trick and the Van Halen, but I was into it all. I mean, I had a Black Sabbath era, and I had a Wasp era, and a Cult, and
It is amazing, and again, going back to Make Your Move, it's such a great album, that I love it from the very beginning to the end. This is an album that you can put 9 songs in a row and never get tired of it. That I think you did a great job. How long did it take? So it's just 1 year to put this album together, or it was something that you brought, you had some ideas, or
well, I had a band after Tattooed Millionaires. I had a band up here in Minneapolis called Speed City Vipers. Mm-hmm. Speed City Vipers was pretty cool, like street punk, street rock. There was some other guys in the band that were writing, so it had a little bit of a different sound. Mm-hmm. But that kind of went to the wayside, and I was sitting there, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to try to keep Speed City Vipers going? Do I want to do the Tattooed Millionaires thing? It's like, no, man, it's time Johnny, it's time. I heard voices in my head from way back in the day saying, Johnny, you just need to be Johnny Jetson. Go out there and be Johnny Jetson. So I'm like, oh, now's the time. I had I Believe in Rock and Roll.
Love it.
There as an incubus, and quickly threw together a couple more songs. I was able to attract the attention of engineer and drummer Adam Hamilton.
Yes, I saw that. He's an amazing drummer.
Amazing drummer and mixing, mastering, and producer, and does all this Cleopatra records, and worked with all kinds of great
I'm surprised. I mean, that it was amazing that he found time to work with you, because he's always so busy, right? He's one of the hottest musicians, producers, in the market. So that's amazing that you could work with him.
Thank you. Yeah, he's a hot commodity, and I was lucky enough to get him for not just one record, but both records.
That is so cool. You cannot go wrong with him. There's no, if something that you work with him, that quality is gonna come out from that record, and I love it. And it's a great job, Johnny.
Well, thanks. Really nice to hear. I mean, I was trying to make a record, I just didn't want to throw a bunch of songs out and, concentrate on one as a single. I wanted to put out a record that someone could put on, and before you know it, it's over and you loved every song.
Florida, you had like a tour, I don't know, probably a week or two. How was Florida? How was Miami? Probably you saw a lot of Argentinians there. That's where I'm originally from.
There were a lot of fun people in Florida, man. I mean, coming from Minnesota with 8-month-long winter and very small windows of bikini weather, it was nice to go down there. There was the Caribbean vibe, and people were out partying, and they're smoking weed in the clubs, and they're dancing, and so it was nice. And people came to the shows. They loved the shows. The band that I had never met until the day I got there. We rehearsed one night at my mom's house, and we went out the next night and played a show, and it was great. It was a good bunch of dudes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how was the process of scouting there? So you work online, because we had a pandemic, right, at that moment. So probably you were...
At the pandemic, and the band that I had scheduled for pandemic reasons and other personal reasons couldn't make the trip down. So I have a friend in Florida that I spoke to about coming down, and she had a friend that played drums, and he had a friend that played bass. So it all came together pretty quick. On this next run, I've got the same drummer and two younger guys on guitar and bass. And I think as a 4-piece, it'll be able to translate those songs a little bit better live. and free me up to be a
That's
little more.
amazing.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're heading back there in July. But quickly, getting back to your point on the Make Your Move record and how long it took to come together.
Mhm.
Well, as soon as I got Adam Hamilton involved, and we had the song I Believe in Rock and Roll, and I threw together a couple more quick songs for him. He liked where it was going, and the record was basically written and recorded between December and February 19 and 20, right? So it came together pretty quick. And Adam likes me because I make it easy. I mean, I got my own setup here. It's plug and play. Plug my guitar in. My amp has its sound. It goes in to the thing. I record my tracks. I send it to him. I send him a guitar track mixed down from 3 to 1. I send him the bass, stereo bass. I send him the vocals, 3 mixed down, right, left, and center. So he gets 4 tracks from me with the lead. And then he's got virtually a million tracks to play with after that. That's why I think the record sounds so good, is because there aren't a lot of tracks. There's not a lot of overdubs. You know, it's pretty raw.
Mm-hmm. And it's so catchy, man.
So we finished up with that record, and I was able to get Rodney Bingenheimer, the famed radio disc jockey from LA, Rodney on the Rock. He started playing one of the songs on his radio show. He played it for 14 straight weeks. I Believe in Rock and Roll, and a couple of the other tracks, and that was a real big boost. I love Rodney. I was friendly with him out in Los Angeles, and it's an honor to be played on his radio show. He's broken so many bands. I mean, he was instrumental in the Ramones and Blondie and Van Halen, and the list goes on and on and on. David Bowie, he broke in the States. So when Rodney's digging your music and playing your tunes, that's exciting in itself. He likes the music, and that alone is, to me, is worth 1 million records sold. So is Ace Frehley coming to one of our shows, and after the show, Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols came up to me and he said, "Johnny, guitar sounds amazing, man. That's like the best guitar sound I've heard in the last 5 years." And then Ace was standing next to me and he said, "5 years? That's the best guitar sound I've heard in 10 years. So that moment, Steve Jones, I love the Sex Pistols. I love his guitar sound style, telling me I had a great sound, and then Ace telling me I had a great sound. And yeah, that moment still lives with me.
Wow. What
Yeah.
man.
So I'm still, you know, when I sit down to make a record, you know, I'm thinking about those guys. I'm thinking about just keeping my sound, you know, what they heard in me, the attitude, the style, what they saw in me that night. And I just try to keep it going, you know?
It's
But
amazing.
it come from Ace was pretty cool. And he bought me a Coke too. I still do.
Awesome. So what's next, Johnny? So you told me that probably you're going to put your second album together and, put it out there on the market. And you are planning to go on tour, US tour, international. What's in your mind right now regarding that?
Well, what's in my mind, I'm returning to Florida, and we're playing 5 shows on the East Coast. And going to try out these new guys in the band and see if they want to take it nationwide. There's an offer to go out to LA and play a couple shows with a friend's band. That would be cool to get back to LA. I'd love to meet with Rodney over at Canner's and several other people I need to see. It's been too long since I've been back. I lived out in LA for 18 years and had a lot of fun out there. And it'd be nice to get back to play some shows. I mean, you know, people talking about, oh, things are starting to open up. Things are starting to open up with the things. And in some circles, they never closed, you know. And in some circles, they're still not quite sure, you know. So even going out, you know, a month ago to Florida was a little bit controversial for some people, you know. There were some people, you know, some backhanded comments, you know, oh yeah, what, COVID isn't real, and you know, oh yeah, you must be a Trump supporter. And I'm like, man, I believe in rock and roll, you know, like I have a real calling. I can't sit in the basement. I can't drive my car with a mask with the windows rolled up. I can't hide from the world, you know, and we're all going to die. And I'm not giving anyone fucking COVID. I'm not killing anyone's grandma by going out and playing a few shows in a nightclub at midnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think now more people are starting to get it. Mm-hmm. And it's either closed if you want it to be closed, or it's open if you want it to be open. So if you want to get out there and rock and roll, you can find a place to do it.
Yeah.
And now everything's opening up. So now it won't even be like it was ever closed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, some of the big tours are still on hold for whatever reason. And some of the bands that are, I know, chomping at the bit to play can't play because they're tied into the business part of it that is waiting. I'm on my own. I waited a year. They took the UK tour away. They took the Australian tour away. They took the Japan trip away. They dropped my record deal because I couldn't go to the UK and support it, so they weren't going to put it out.
For a musician, it's a lot of money, man. It's like, you know, what are you going to do to survive? You know, so you got to do what you want to do, man. You know, it's very difficult, and hopefully, fingers crossed that, you know, that everything's going to open and everything's going to go back to normal, because I think musicians is part of in the world, one of the part of the people who suffer the most this pandemic, you know, and economically, you know, spiritually, and, you know, etc.
Yeah. And it's really weird how they shut it down. You know, it wasn't like, you know, We Are the World, where they came out with the song that like united the world. There wasn't even a We Are the World moment in this whole COVID thing. It's like the mighty, from the Guns N' Roses on down to the Johnny Jetson, just done. But I got the Make Your Move record. It did real well on the radio. Got played on over 250 stations.
Nice.
People were buying the downloads, and it, you know, it was my best-selling release I've had since the first Tattooed Millionaires in the MySpace days. So
you only love me for my car. You only hold me when we're going fast, and then you whisper just a little faster. You only love me for my car.
For me, the COVID year was bittersweet, losing the deal, losing the tours, but at the same time putting out a record that did better than any of the records I put out in the 15 years. So,
and it shows, man. It shows. I'm so happy for you.
Audience. I had a captive audience. They couldn't go anywhere. They were forced to listen to me. Yep, we've got Florida shows coming up, playing Kill Your Idol, Miami Beach, and we're playing. I can't think of the dates, but just check my site, my Facebook.
Yeah, I will post it here on the screen.
And third Florida, we'll get out to LA, and then we're going to get to Texas. And hopefully my goal for the next year is to open up for Cheap Trick, because they're back out on tour. Awesome. And Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts, a great band, Tuck Smith, he's opening up some shows with them. So I'm like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring with Cheap Trick. And what's interesting is I met their photographer down in Florida, and he took some pictures of us, the guy who took their pictures on their latest record, the latest Cheap Trick record. And Mr. Daly is his name. And Mr. Daly, he told me, Johnny, you should be opening up for Cheap Trick. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I should be opening up for Cheap Trick. So everyone, you know, if you want Johnny Jetson to open for Cheap Trick, say that. Think about that. Positive thoughts, because I think Johnny Jetson would be great opening for Cheap Trick this year.
Of course, and good vibes and all the positive energy for you for that to happen, man. I that would be a dream come true for me too, man.
Thank you, Mr. 101.
Yes, Johnny, I just want to thank you for all your music, for your rock and roll, for being true to yourself, because it shows, and then I believe in you because you believe in you, right? And I love you, man. Thank you for your music again. And I'm here, you know, this show is your show. Anything that you need, man, we're here to promote whatever you need to promote, man. And thank you again, brother. I have no words to thank you enough, man.
Thank you. And thank all the people out there that are watching. And I really appreciate you. Believe in rock and roll too. and it'll see you through.
Ah, baby.